Good Erev Shabbos, everyone. Shabbos Re'eh, Shabbos Mevorchim, the month of Elul, Erev Chodesh Elul. Ani ledodi v'dodi li. I'm to my beloved's to me. And in the talk we learned this morning, a very, very important talk from 1957 from the Rebbe in Shabbos Re'eh, blessing the month of Elul. The Rebbe talks about the example given in the Likutei Torah about the month of Elul, that it's the idea of king in the field. We all know the example the Rebbe gives, the Alter Rebbe gives, of a king who's on his way into the city, passes through the field, and anyone who's in the field has access to go meet the king and is greeted warmly by the king and can actually go and petition his or her case to the king, unlike if when the king is in the city, in his palace, where the access is not there and you have to have an appointment and only special people get in, etc. In the example itself that the Rebbe gives, the Alter Rebbe gives, the Rebbe points out that he says that as the king is leaving the field and goes into the city, those who accompany and meet the king in the field accompany him into the city. And the Rebbe tries to analyze, the Rebbe does analyze, what is the idea of this addition to the example. The example is we're just trying to understand what is unique about Elul, because we say that Elul is the revelation of the 13 attributes of mercy. And the question is, if it's the revelation of 13 attributes of mercy, then it should be a holiday. That's when we have great revelations, it's a moment of holiday. Nevertheless, we don't find that Elul is a month of holiday. And the reason is because the king is in the field. That's the idea. Is that the king is in the field to meet us because we're in the field. And what's the definition of the field in short? Is a place of the field of Esav. Esav is the person of the field. A city, a home and cities are built of bricks and stones, and we know that the bricks and stones are the words of Torah and the words of Tefillah. We slowly build houses, and houses create cities. And when a person is in the world, out there, not learning Torah, not davening, but out in the world, nevertheless has the ability to turn the field of the world into a home, to make it a place of habitation. How? By making their interactions of the world in a way of bechol derachecha, in all your ways. De'ehu is a way of knowing Hashem. So you transform what typically is looked as the field into a city. But if the king is coming out to the field, and that's your field, that means you haven't done that yet. You haven't transformed your mundane to be a place of a city, a place of a bias, a home, Ira Lekenu, a city of God. And nevertheless, the king goes out to the field to greet us. And the idea is because that is the 13 attributes of mercy. When it comes to the idea of din, of judgment would say, what are you doing in the field? Why haven't you transformed your field into a city, into a place of Ira Lekim, a city of God? But the king goes out to the field and he greets us and he's accessible. But we have to remember, sometimes what we forget is that when there's interaction and acceptance, and the king comes to us in the field as we are people of the field, dressed as in the field, he's accessible, warm, accompanying, he listens to us. But that's not the bottom line. The bottom line is to awaken within us the need and the core to want to be in a city. And therefore, when the king goes back to the city, we go back to the city. And here the Rebbe says an amazing idea. The Rebbe says it's not because the king inspires us that we should go out and we're separate from the king. We have no connection to the king really, but the king has inspired us to go do our job, to change our field and make it into a city. In the revelation of the 13 attributes of mercy, when the king comes to greet us, we become connected, mekusher. That's called the idea of iskashrus. We become mekusher to the king. And the idea of being tied to the king, which we know is even greater than to be the davek, he's dveikus, to be cleaving to the king. Although in Hayom Yom the Rebbe talks about that dveikus, he quotes, is you don't even see the seam. It's mamish almost like one, and kesher is two things that are tied. But the difference is that when something is tied, once it's tied, although it starts off as two things, it's tied tight together. Something that's pasted together or cleaved together, you could separate it. You come so makusher to the king, so connected to the king, that wherever the king goes, that's where you go. If the king no longer is in the field, you're no longer in the field either. You go to the city. Because you want to be wherever the king is. That's the bottom line. The bottom line is not so much how the changes we make within ourselves, but the relationship we now have with the king. And the Rebbe connects this with Re'eh, and it's a very important idea, the Rebbe says. The Rebbe says Re'eh, like we spoke many times, is to see. His amtus, emes, truth, certainty. When you have certainty, you're able to serve Hashem. That comes from the essence of the heart, of the soul that's been open and connected, to be makusher now to the Hashem, to be so connected to God that wherever God goes, you want to be. If God's no longer in the field, you're no longer in the field. And that starts to be developed over the month of Elul. By having the certainty, it starts to reveal the essence of who we are. But the Rebbe says it's not enough to see, because we see the way Hashem created us is that we see through our eyes, and our eyes are still material. And sometimes we look at things and we don't pay attention. It says about the Gemara, we learned about Yerovam, the son of Nevat. The Gemara asks, what's the same? We know about the king. He was the first corrupt king of the Jewish people, and his name was Yerovam, the son of Nevat. The Gemara says, what's Nevat? What's Havata? What's it mean to look? That he tried to understand something without properly looking. So habata means to understand, to not just look. But you have to see right, and then when you see something right, you pay attention to it. Not to see something crooked, and then your conclusion is crooked. That was Yerovam ben Nevat. Because he didn't look properly, so then his conclusion, his habata of trying to understand what he saw was crooked. The idea is Re'eh, the Rebbe says, to see properly the truth of what Hashem wants from us. We're no longer people that are people from the field. We're people that want to create, constantly building homes and houses and cities, and we do that by having habata, by paying attention to what we see, not just to be passive, not even to things that we understand, but we should elevate ourselves to a certainty and to such a level of re'eh that we should come together with the King, with the coming of Mashiach and the King of Melech HaMashiach. Hashem is going to be the certainty we're all going to have with the coming of Mashiach, specifically with the coming to Rosh Hashanah. We shall be blessed with a good Gebench Diyar in going into the city. We know that we can go into the city because we're connected to the King. We're Mekusher. We're so tied down that wherever the King goes, we go. Good Shabbos and a good Chodesh.